Jared basically comes over and Dan's on the headset, telling him, hey, we're kicking it and just get the field goal team ready. We're going to stand here. We're going to talk it through, but we're going to kick it. And Jared, dejected, is like, man, I want it to go. And Dan Campbell just looks at him and said, you want to do it? F it. We're going for it. And then he changes his mind and goes for it. And he trusts his men. He trusts his team. He trusts his offensive line that they're going to get it done for him. And some people may look at that and be like, hey, is that really how it should go? Yeah, that's how it should go. You can do all the analytics in the world. You can say, oh, man, this percentage and this percentage. But at the end of the day, do you trust your team? Do you believe in your guys? And if your quarterback says he thinks they can get it done and you say, I'm going to believe in my quarterback and what he sees and what he does, that's a gut feeling. And that's why this team is ready to run through walls for Dan Campbell, because he believes in them like they believe in him. And he is a leader of men.
Okay, Richard Sherman, the man is telling everyone that Jared Goff defended Dan Campbell for his aggressive fourth down calls. This is Sports Guy Talking that you guys are watching and listening to. I am Dustin Tran, your host, as I am here today to talk about Jared Goff defending Dan Campbell for being a fearless head coach. The Lions are currently 12-1 on the season and hold the number 1 seed in the NFC with a win on Sunday against the Bills. The Lions will move on to being 13-1 on the season. Before I say anything else, though, I want to present you guys with a topic question. So, here it is. Will Jared Goff lead the Lions to a Super Bowl run this season? Book it. I believe Jared Goff is going to get the job done for the Detroit Lions, and he is going to do so at a high level. Is there a quarterback playing better than Jared Goff right now in the NFC? My answer to that question would be no. Jared Goff has been the best quarterback in the NFC this year. When we talk about elite quarterbacks, for whatever reason, people leave out Jared Goff's name, but when you watch the tape of Jared Goff, it is incredibly impressive. He stands tall in the pocket, he's incredibly accurate with the football in his hands, and he pushes the football downfield. He might not have the world's greatest arm, but in terms of being able to loft a 40-yard pass effectively in the air, there's no quarterback that can do it better than Jared Goff right now in the National Football League. Prior to Dan Campbell coming over to the Lions were massive losers for essentially most of 90 years in the National Football League. I know that they were pretty good in the 1950s, but outside of the Bobby Lane years, the Detroit Lions have been a putrid franchise. There's a reason why they have never made a Super Bowl appearance in franchise history. It is because they used to have dysfunctional ownership, but lately the Lions changed owners, and what happened? Her first move was hiring Dan Campbell as the head coach of the Detroit Lions. They also hired a new general manager as well. The Lions have done a phenomenal job rebuilding their football team, and obviously the ability to get the most out of Jared Goff at the quarterback position doesn't hurt either. You want to talk about being a motivator of men? There is nobody better at that than Dan Campbell. If you listen to Dan Campbell talk, you have to feel goosebumps in your arms and legs, because you just have to say to yourself, wow, what a freaking leader Dan Campbell is. How do you not want to play hard for Dan Campbell? When he says something, he's totally authentic in his mouth, and he means it to the core of his heart. When you have a head coach that is that authentic to you, you have to play hard for him at all times, and you can tell that Dan Campbell believes in his players on a consistent basis, and obviously Jared Goff is going to reward that back by praising his head coach whenever anyone expresses doubt in him. I see all the shows talk trash about Dan Campbell's fourth down aggressiveness, and Jared Goff just sits there and says, what you mean coach is being too aggressive? Well, he's got to go out there and execute. If we execute these fourth down plays, no one is going to question our aggressiveness on fourth down. In fact, there are probably more teams that need to be aggressive when it comes to fourth down calls at the NFL level. Now, I will say, if Dan Campbell made some of those fourth down calls and I was the one that had to approve of them, I would have said, are you kidding me? Why are you going for it in that situation? But you know what? The Detroit Lions have managed to make that work because they're a mentally tough football team, and they're also a physically tough football team. When the Lions need a yard to pick it up on fourth down, they almost always get it, and that's because they have an elite offensive line that can push the line of scrimmage back. When you have an offensive line that is that dominant, yeah, you're going to go ahead and go for it more often than not. Play to the strengths of your team, and that is exactly what Dan Campbell has done. I also want to show you guys this clip of Dan Campbell talking about mental toughness and what is the mentality surrounding the Lions and how they deal with pressure. I felt very motivated listening to his statement. Roll the film.
I think it's great for us. I think, I think it does. It keeps you sharp. I think, I've mentioned this before. I think we do well with pressure, and it's the right kind of friction and stress that we need, and it's motivating. And so, I love it. I think it's great. And look, nobody's going to lose. Nobody's losing. So we're going, man.
You are correct, sir. Yes!
That is speaking truth right there, Dan Campbell. What a way to motivate everybody in that room. If you're not fired up after listening to that 26-second clip from Dan Campbell, then I'm not sure what is going to fire you up. You must be a robot if you're not fired up by Dan Campbell's speech. I am incredibly fired up just listening to Dan Campbell talk. I'm thinking about how to run through a brick wall right now and saying, man, I'm going to go get the extra yard just for you to be the happiest man on earth. Dan Campbell has incredible confidence in his players, and his players in return give Dan Campbell that incredible confidence by being able to execute the play calls that are given from Ben Johnson. You look at how Dan Campbell doesn't try to act like the smartest man ever, so he delegates his roles really well. That's why Ben Johnson is the amazing offensive coordinator that he is on the Detroit Lions. You look at how Ben Johnson is able to come up with crazy play designs each and every week, and how he can get the most out of his players on a consistent basis. And I think this Sunday is going to be no different. I'm looking at the Buffalo Bills right now, and I'm seeing, man, Josh Allen is playing absolute amazing football. He's going to play MVP level for the Buffalo Bills, and I truly believe Josh Allen is going to go ahead and carry the Buffalo Bills into making this game a shootout. But ultimately, I got the Lions winning this game because I believe in Dan Campbell. I believe in Jared Goff. I believe in Ben Johnson. I believe in Amon-Ra St. Brown, and those guys are going to get the job done because the Detroit Lions are the best team in the National Football League. It's going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be close. In fact, I think the Buffalo Bills might be leading this game late in the fourth quarter. But when you want to talk about late game coaching between Sean McDermott and Dan Campbell, I'm taking Dan Campbell over Sean McDermott 10 times out of 10. I also think Jared Goff is going to lead his team on a game-winning drive. They're going to score a touchdown. Then with the Lions being down by 1 point, Dan Campbell is going to send out a signal that says go for two. The Detroit Lions will go for two, and they will end up converting the 2-point conversion. It's going to be an epic game. It's going to be back and forth, but ultimately the Lions are going to come out of this game victorious. It's going to be 39-38 Lions. It's going to be the game of the year. I'm incredibly excited just for this game to even start, and obviously the game will live up to the hype. The Detroit Lions are 12-1 because they're a great football team that has a great head coach in place, not because they're a lucky football team. The Detroit Lions are able to find ways to win games in all ways possible. The Detroit Lions may never lose another meaningful game in 2024. That is how dominant they are as a team. Their offense is a well-oiled machine. Their defense is incredibly underrated, and I expect the Detroit Lions to go very far in the NFL playoffs this year. If the Lions get the number 1 seed in the NFC, they're making the Super Bowl. I'm calling it right now. It's not even close in my mind. It's the Detroit Lions, and then it's everybody else. That's how good the Detroit Lions have played football in 2024. Great job to Jared Goff for proving his doubters wrong and continuing to be an absolute baller on a weekly basis. Good job to Dan Campbell for putting Jared Goff and these other players in great positions to succeed. It's really that simple. It's going to reflect that on Sunday with another win that will put the Lions to 13-1. They're going to beat the Buffalo Bills. It's going to be an epic game. I know that much. So that is why Jared Goff will lead the Lions into a Super Bowl run this season, as they will also beat the Bills by the score of 39-38. Remember, go ahead and subscribe to Sports Guy Talking. Like the video and please comment down below. If you guys do that, I may shout you guys out in my Instagram story every Monday. That will be for the @DustinAsTran Instagram account. Make sure to follow me on Instagram @DustinAsTran, and that's Sports Guy Talking. Also, go follow me on Twitter @DustinAsTran. Again, go ahead and do those things that I just told you guys to go do. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the content that was just produced. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Want more Sports Guy Talking, the home of great sports content? Make sure you click that subscribe button to get the latest from Sports Guy Talking. Go ahead and like the video, comment down below, check the description box on the video in order to follow my Instagram and Twitter. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from the YouTube channel, Sports Guy Talking.